As we always do every Friday, we have an EcoRI to talk about the big environmental stories on their website from this week. Come around the corner, Frank Carini.
Thank you.
It's good to have you back.
Yes, you had my personal and professional better half on last week.
I like the mix-up, it keeps me on my toes.
Right.
Which EcoRI focus am I going to get this week?
And I was watching, by the way, last week.
Oh, were
I
you?
was writing, yes, and I did the fashion. I heard the shots at me is what I'm saying. The insults. You guys are having a ball. That's fine.
I'll have to look at the episode to see exactly what transpired.
I have it recorded right
Did
now.
we say something about your fashion choices? I'm really not one to talk, so.
That's fine. No,
I like the shirt. It's
Thank
sharp.
you. Yeah. Reuse in Portland, a reuse secondhand store.
Reuse, reduce, recycle,
Oh, yeah.
EcoRI. Talk with us. One of the things we've been talking about for a few months now. EcoRI wrote the big story that got a lot of headlines. The naval war exercises, the war games. You had told us a few weeks ago you were going to be talking with somebody from the Navy about the potential environmental impact for this, and you did. The podcast is up on the website.
It just went live today. You've already listened to it?
If there's a
some of
test,
it?
some of it. So
Nice.
talk with us about how it went. I mean, the conversation, and is there going to be a big environmental impact?
Both Bob Keeney from URI, the marine scientist, and Gene Nielsen, Nisen, from the Navy said no. They don't believe it's going to be a huge impact. I mean, they do a lot of testing, a lot of studying. If they see a blue whale, they see marine life, they don't set off to live ordinances. The sonar's not on that long. Bob was saying, the URI scientist, that typical just all the
Regular.
boat traffic, ship traffic in the water makes more noise than this military exercise will.
And do we get a sense of how close this will be taking place? Is it deep water? Will we see or hear it from the coastline?
No, we won't. They don't. Nothing that close for live ordinances, and not the live ordinances. No, they won't be anywhere near that. We're going to hear unless you're boating by. But even if you were, they probably wouldn't. They have watchers for marine life and boats and stuff.
So they have protections in place. So they've said that if again they encounter wildlife or they encounter whales, they will alter their course, so to speak.
They will. I mean, the Navy. I'm not here to say, everything's great. But I mean, all these military exercises and all the things we do to the ocean, not just what the military or Navy does, but society in general, the world in general, has a cumulative effect that we use and abuse the oceans. But they do put a lot of work into it. The Navy also gives a lot of money to research and stuff, and there's a lot of environmental protections the Navy's help fund. So, I mean, like as he said, everything can't be done on a simulator. Would you want to fly in a plane with the pilots only been on a simulator?
Yes.
No, I wouldn't.
So you need to be out there. Did anything surprise you in your conversation with them?
No, but what was surprising is, I've never really dealt with the Navy before, but when I asked somebody to come on the podcast, they flew up from Norfolk, Virginia to be with us. I can't even get somebody from the state house to walk across the street to come to our downtown podcast. So
The Navy is full transparency.
yeah,
Give
they got
them an A grade.
right back to me. Their Ted Brown, their media person or whatever, got right back to me. I mean, it was,
Kudos to the Navy.
No,
Maybe Rushmore's going to put them on the hot list next week.
maybe. I mean, I don't know how you feel
Being
about
open and
military
accessible.
Yeah, they were. They weren't trying to hide anything. I mean, and Gene wasn't BSing and stuff. I mean, it's a complicated issue.
Mm.
And I wish we didn't have so much war. And who doesn't wish that, except for a few people, I guess. But but we do use and abuse the oceans. But I do think in this case, the military, at least the Navy, has put a lot of thought into it.
Well, you can listen to that podcast on ecori.org. Make sure you check it out. It's a long weekend. Pull up your computer, put some headsets in.
Yeah, it's a 32 minutes.
If you're at the beach, just chilling out.
You're that bored? Sure, put it on.
Give it a listen. But that's, you can listen to it anywhere. One of the stories that you had was what's going on in Green, Rhode Island, with Coventry looking to be sort of
The renewable capital of...
the renewable capital of the state,
Yeah.
but concerns from folks in the area about how that's going about.
Yeah, that's the people I talk to's take on what the town's trying to do. The town hasn't said they're trying to do that, but if you don't read the story and see the quotes, you'll be like, what? No, the town's not trying. I mean, maybe they are, but they haven't said that publicly. But no, we talked about this before. It's just the siting, and they're concerned. Green is rural western Coventry. They already have 10 wind turbines. Now I was looking at two. One's rather small, but one rather large solar systems being put in, and a lot of trees are coming down. Now, a lot of these trees are on private property. But, I can't cut down trees on my property and, open up a dance club, although my property would be the size of a shed. But, there's...
Very little dance club.
Yeah, it'd be small. But...
Invitation only.
Exactly. I don't think anybody would show up anyway if I invited them. But it's a complicated issue. We've talked about it in other places where it's happening in Hopkinton, Richmond, Burrill's not solar or renewable, but the same thing. I mean, there's got to be, and I talked to the associate planner down there, Brian Wagner, who was, really forthcoming and had some good points. It's like, no, some of these spots aren't ideal, and the state and stakeholders have to work together to figure out a better plan where we're siting these things. And some people will say, site them, if it means cutting down some trees, so be it. It's better than fossil fuel or nuclear energy.
So when you get the sense when you talked with folks who had concerns, did they feel that their concerns, and you talk about private lands and obviously decisions that might not involve public input, did you get the sense they felt that the community, that leadership in the government was really hearing their concerns, or did they feel like they just didn't have a say?
They felt like the town wasn't listening to them, and very few, some of their state reps or state senators gave them a little bit of a listen, some more than others, but they said the town officials were just basically steamrolling them, except for the one in Coventry. There's 5 districts, there's 5 council members. District 1 is where Green is. They have a councilwoman, I forgot her name, but she's for their, she's agreeing with them, but they're losing the vote 3-2. And you're putting stuff. I mean, it is private property, but still, a private property is a neighbor next to it. Where there was a picture of the gentleman that we use as photo. There's a turbine you can see, which I personally don't think looking at a turbine is that bad, but a lot of people do. And there's obviously other things with it, noise and shadow flicker, which I didn't get into in the story. But there's also, he can see that his neighbor is pretty much putting in a solar panels too, which is better than looking at other things, I suppose. And I'm not, and none of the people I talked to are against renewable energy. They're just like, why aren't we citing it? Coventry is one of the biggest towns in the Northeast, like 62 square miles. There's plenty of rooftops, commercial rooftops. There's a huge vacant parking lot on Route 3 that nothing's been there for years. Why not put them there? There's the old New England, the center of New England, this retail development complex that's largely vacant or not that well utilized as it should be. The space.
So pointing out where the opportunities are.
Yeah. Why does it have to be in woods, even if they are private woods? Why are we cutting down trees?
Well, it's probably the bottom line, but I'd have to defer to you on that.
Well, as Brian Wagner he said, it's less expensive to cut down trees and grade property that doesn't have any other thing built on it, and less of a hassle, and it's less expensive. So.
Well, if you're interested, concerned, check it out on EcoRI. One last one that I was interested to see on EcoRI was having the Pocono Pits battle down in Bristol against Brown University. Now, environmental website focusing on this battle. Why?
We're also social justice. That's a social justice issue. Social justice issues and environmental issues are really intertwined. Quite frankly, we don't do a good enough job with the social justice side. And sadly, too, those stories that we do not as well read, at least not clicked on, as our other stories. But they're both really related, and they both play off each other, and they both get used and abused. So that's why we're covering that, and I wish we could cover more. But yeah, actually, when I was leaving the office to come up here, Brown and the tribe have an agreement. I don't know what that agreement is. My colleague Tim Faulkner, who did the story, the one you referenced, is also working on that. So maybe by the time I get back.
Brown had proposed something. We have it on site
today.
You
already know.
Yeah. So the details of what Brown proposed are on there. It's I believe the Pocono Pits reaction that would be the next step for folks to know. We had Ray Watson in here to talk about
I saw that.
After he'd done Tucker Carlson. Did you see the Tucker Carlson interview?
No, you guys did an interview with Tucker Carlson?
Ray Watson had done an interview with
Really?
Tucker.
Well, I must have went well.
Well, I'll tell you, it was interesting because Ray's very, he's got his talking points buttoned up as to why he believes, and the Pocono Pits believe that this land is theirs, that it was taken, they believe, unlawfully by folks hundreds of years ago, and here's where we've gotten to this point. Tucker Carlson had asked a lot of questions about Brown's role in it as a purportedly liberal institution. Well, if they're so liberal, why aren't they open to this or negotiations and things of that nature? And it was
It's
interesting.
typical find of this quality journalism that Tucker Carlson is known for.
But, Ray pointed out when folks were asking him about that too, he goes, well, I don't see CNN or MSNBC or anybody else knocking on my door to ask me this story, so I'm not going to... he was good. I mean, he stayed on his message. So he's like, I'm not going to get involved.
He can outwit Tucker Carlson.
Because I'm not going to get involved in the politics of this. Here's the point, and here's what I'm arguing for the Pocono Pits. So he he stuck to his guns. He had his message, and I give him credit because a lot of times when you do media training, people try to get you off on tangents. And,
Oh yeah, Tucker had him on to try to
take Brown down a notch or two.
Take down, talk about attack liberal, whatever he wants to attack.
Yeah.
But, race.
But as Ray said, he goes, have national audience, have national stage,
Right?
got
No,
to
that's
tell our
great.
issue.
I'll have to watch that. I did not see that.
Watch that. Watch if you did you catch them on ours? You have to
Yeah, I
catch
watched them on here.
Okay,
Yeah.
you did watch them on here. Well, appreciate it. Always appreciate reading EcoRI stories.
Well, thank you.
Listen to the podcast about the Navy coming up to talk with Frank Carini about the potential impact.
Well, with EcoRI, I don't know. We had Nick Boak was there. No, not just me.
Talk just with you, just with Frank Carini.
Yeah, that's what a thrill he had.
So I always go through and I sort of pick out what I think are the most interesting environmental stories of the week. Is there anything else you want to talk about while you're
No,
here
we've been a little quiet.
Just
I do want to do more lead stuff. I want to do what's happening at the schools. I want to do what's happening in New Bedford or Fall River, but those are down the road in the pipeline.
Good to see, because we discussed the lead story last week that you had written. So you heard it here. There's going to be more on this. Schools and other areas in New England as well. So we'll keep an eye out on that.
Yes.
And we'll be talking about that in the future.
Thank
Okay.
you. Well, have a good weekend.
Frank Carini, you too. Is it going to be a long weekend?
Sticking around the house, yard work, EcoRI work, nothing special.
Okay. Well, have a good one, whatever you're up to. Thank you. Frank Carini, news editor at EcoRI. Either him or executive director Joanna Detz usually comes in every Friday to talk with us about the big stories on the environmental website here in the state, focusing on issues of importance, talking about the, again, podcast you can listen to. The Navy is going to be conducting war games far off the coast of the East Coast next year. And Frank was talking about how accessible the Navy was to actually get someone up here to come fly up, do a podcast, talk about it. Said he felt pretty good about where things stand with sonar and marine wildlife in general. So take a listen at that. What's going on with renewables, specifically in Coventry, and then talking about the Pocono Pits battle in Bristol and why EcoRI said they also want to focus on social justice. They do as well, and so that's why you could see it on EcoRI this week. So thanks to Frank Carini for coming in, as he always does. We'll see him again next week here at the Navigant Credit Union broadcast.